Welcome, internet goers, one and all. Now, I don't know how many of those of you watching are actually wrestling fans, but I have to ask, who watched Extreme Rules this past Sunday? I'm just curious. I mean, I watched it, but I had the WWE Network. I mean, what else was I doing that day? I wouldn't have bought the pay-per-view otherwise, you know. I mean, after the network got launched, she was gonna willingly pay $50+ for those. Not to mention, they just haven't been that good lately. I mean, I feel sorry for any of you poor bastards that bought Royal Rumble 2014. I mean, God, that pay-per-view was so fucking terrible. I had more enjoyment watching Over the Edge 99. And, yeah, that was a really bad pay-per-view. In fact, yeah, it's one of the pay-per-views that WWE wants to forget, and for good reason, too. But Royal Rumble 14. Wow, that one was bad. Hell, even Halloween Havoc 98 was better. And that one was a pretty bad pay-per-view, too. I mean, it left a really sour taste in people's mouths watching Ultimate Warrior and Hogan wrestle, and then the pay-per-view cutting off shortly after that when people really wanted to watch Goldberg versus DDP. But anyway, on to Extreme Rules 2014. How was it? How did it stack up? My thoughts on it. It was okay. The main event was great. The match right before it was pretty good. Cena's match was terrible. I don't know who all actually enjoyed watching that, but I was not one of them. I'm all for Bray Wyatt getting a push, but that was just ridiculous. And how it ended just made no sense whatsoever. And yeah, I'm kind of wondering how Raw is going to be going down from that. I end up watching Raw later. I think it's going on right now, actually, as I'm recording this. But yes. First match was the pre-show match, the fucking WLC. People actually cheered for that. I thought that was one of the dumbest things I've ever watched in my life. I mean, I don't have a problem with two short people wrestling. You know, you can call them whatever you want to call them. Little people, midgets, short people, you know, whatever. But that in itself wasn't what was stupid. What was stupid was they included a small person announcer, small people parodies of Michael Cole, Michael Cole, King, and JBL, like in there, in the tiny little fucking announcer table that looked like it was made by Fisher fucking Price. And if that wasn't enough, because it was WLC, it had to have little tiny toddler versions of tables, ladders, and chairs. And aside from the fact that the Matadors and 3MB were also involved, so they looked like fucking giants in this match, it was ridiculous. I mean, I don't have a problem with Hornswoggle. El Torito sounds interesting, but they just made it out as a fucking joke. And I was like, wow, can you imagine if this was actually on the actual pay-per-view as like the first match or in the middle of the pay-per-view? I mean, I would have been like, wow. I mean, if you break it down, say this was like 7 matches and it's like $50. I mean, how much is that? Like $6-7? You paid that much to watch this piece of shit. So yeah, that one fucking sucked in my opinion. I mean, I'm sure it had its fans, but I was not one of them. On to the next match, which was actually one I was interested in watching. The Triple Threat Elimination, which is kind of funny because they were making it sound like it was going to be one fall to the finish. But no, it was an elimination match with Rob Van Dam, Jack Swagger, and Cesaro. No surprise, Cesaro won. But overall, it was okay. I felt like Jack Swagger shouldn't have even been in the fucking match because he was just barely there, and that was it. What Rob Van Dam and Cesaro did going back and forth was pretty decent, but it was barely a triple threat. I mean, before you knew it, Jack Swagger was gone, and it was a one-on-one match, like I would assume it would have. I thought it was going to be Swagger versus Cesaro, but they had to include Rob Van Dam in it, I guess. Either way, the match was okay. The next match, I think that was Wade Barrett versus Big E Langston. Again, that match was okay. Not as good as the Cesaro match. I would have been fine with Cesaro or Wade Barrett going up against Big E. So, overall, I wasn't disappointed. It was decent. I love the fact that Wade Barrett's doing this little troll gimmick. I think it's hilarious. I know he's technically a heel, but he's getting a lot of support from the fans, and I find that fucking hilarious as hell. Anyway, that match was okay. And then we have the Evolution versus Shield match. Believe it or not, I expected a lot more. The majority of that match was actually kind of boring. It was just, what was it? I can barely remember the beginning part of that match. Hell, like half the match I don't even remember much of. It was like Evolution beating the shit out of the Shield member by member. And I don't even know what the fuck happened after that. It's like all of a sudden, I think Seth Rollins did his little flying knee trick when Batista was about to powerbomb, or a pedigree was about to be hit on someone, and then just shit hit the fan. The last 5 minutes of this was amazing. It was like in your face, fast paced shit. Like it ended up resulting in what was it? Randy Orton and Triple H, and then Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins all were kind of huddled in the back, leaving Batista and Roman Reigns in the ring. Out cold, by the way. So no one was even paying attention to them. And then, all of a sudden, they're in the middle of a bottom entrance. They're beating the crap out of Dean Ambrose. And then all of a sudden, Seth Rollins just, out of nowhere, came flying on the top and landed on both of them. I was like, wow, I didn't expect this. This is really freaking awesome. I was about ready to say, man, this match fucking blows. And all of a sudden, they just turned it around. I kind of wish they did more of that from the get-go. But, I think when we look back, it's going to be a great match. But, man, it drug on in the beginning. The next match was the match that everyone expected it was going to be, I think, which was Cena versus Bray Wyatt in a cage match. And basically it was Cena basically beating the crap out of Bray Wyatt, trying to leave the cage, and then Eric Rowan and Luke Harper were just fucking cock-blocking him the whole time. And I was like, okay, so it's a 3-on-1 cage match. And in the end, I think all three of them, of the Wyatt family, was in the ring. And, it kept on, them both trying to get out of the cage. I wasn't really invested in the match. And all of a sudden, screen goes black, does that little Wyatt family edit thing. And then it's got this little kid singing The Whole World in His Hands, really deep, it's I don't know, it's some kind of creepy video or something, and it shocks Cena, he's like, oh my god. He stops dead in his tracks, and then, I think Bray Wyatt does something to him, does the Sister Abigail thing or whatever, and then just leaves the cage, hugs the kid, calls him Little Johnny or something, and leaves. So yeah, it was that was interesting. I didn't really know what to think about it, other than the fact that I just wasn't very impressed. And I've seen Bray Wyatt in pretty good matches. The Wyatt family versus the Shield was good. Bray Wyatt versus Daniel Bryan was phenomenal. It makes you question. I understand that Cena's this big guy and all, but it's wow. First off, you're seeing the same shit, every other week with him. And then it seems like he doesn't have very good matches half the time. I mean, he's got great charisma. I'm not trying to rip on Cena or anything, but jeez. I had a feeling it wasn't going to be a good match. I was kind of hoping it'd be decent, but I had a feeling it wasn't going to be that good, but jeez. I was just... That was my snack break, pretty much. Trying to think what the next match was. Was it the women's match? Maybe. Well, regardless, whatever match was afterwards, if it wasn't the Divas match, was unmemorable. The Divas match, however, in my opinion, at that moment, it's the best match of the pay-per-view. This is the first time in years I was excited for a Divas match. I've been so fed up with the Divas division for the past couple years. Finally, Paige shows up, saves the fucking day, and Tamina Snuka was pretty awesome too. And I was just like, wow, this is awesome. I was actually watching it, the whole time. And I hope everyone in the audience and everyone else watching was invested in this match too, because it was worth it. Like she was getting her ass kicked, and then she was kicking ass, and all of a sudden, the Scorpion Crush Lock, bam, tapped out. So yeah, Paige is definitely breathing new life in the Divas division, and it's actually worth watching for once. And then finally, the main event. The main event of the pay-per-view. Daniel Bryan versus Kane. I knew they were going to work well, but I didn't know that a forklift was going to be involved. And that a forklift was involved. And then Daniel Bryan did a diving headbutt like he's fucking Chris Benoit off the fucking forklift. And I was like, how the fuck you gonna top that? That was amazing. And then Kane gets on a table. And then Kane gets gasoline. Pours the gasoline on. And I'm thinking, there's no way that they're gonna like that. I mean, hell, in Backlash 04, Eric Bischoff cock-blocked Mick Foley from doing that. And then all of a sudden, he lets it on fire. And I'm just like, what? Serious? It's on fire! And then fucking Kane falls on it. And I think that the more damage that was done to him was the guy putting him out with the fire extinguisher. I mean, hell... I almost felt like Kane was like, fucking just leave me on fire, man. This is ridiculous. So they're covering him with the fire extinguisher shit. He gets back in, gets hit with a flying knee. Boom, he's done. But yeah, the last two matches made watching Extreme Rules worth it. I mean, obviously the low point was the cage match. I never thought I'd find a really boring cage match, but I stood corrected. Otherwise, decent pay-per-view. Yeah, for the most part, but flaming tables and forklifts. Till next time, folks.